Today in Unit 1, Lesson 4, we're talking about multiplying integers. This is on workbook page 26. So this is page 26 in your, textbook page 26. So we're on page 26. Our question says, Lisa owes $2 to each of 6 friends. What integer represents Lisa's debt? Well, if she owes money, we know that's a negative. So our first model is using repeated addition because we know multiplying is repeated addition. So every one of her friends has to owe $2. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. That's $12, and we know it has to be a negative. So we know we're going to get negative 12. But once again, remember that we're focusing on the concept, not just knowing the answer. So you could show that with the number line also, that if each friend owes $2, that it's going to go to the left. So we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So we still got negative 12. But now let's look at our questions. So question number 2 says, what number represents the amount Lisa owes to each friend? So every friend was $2. So that's why that one's a negative 2. Is the amount positive or negative? Well, we kind of already said that. It's negative. Why? Because owing, if you owe money, is going to be a negative. And then back in the question, how many friends does Lisa owe? It said from the question that she owed $6 to each of her friends. So complete the phrase to show how much Lisa owes. So she has 6 friends. So that would be 6 groups of how many? 6 groups of negative 2 friends. So when we rewrote it, that was negative 2 plus 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 negative 2, which represents 6 times negative 2. And adding 6 groups of negative 2 is the same thing as multiplying because repeated addition is multiplying. And we already know this. Complete the multiplication to find the integer that represents Lisa's total debt. 6 times negative 2 is negative 12. Now, how could we use the multiplication rule? Well, we know the multiplication rule from the introduction is that the rules are a positive times a positive is a positive, a negative times a negative is a negative times a positive is a negative, and a negative time, let me write that down because I'm sure I said wrong. Positives times a positive is a positive. A positive times a negative is a negative. A negative times a positive is a negative. And a negative times a negative is going to be a positive. So how can we use that rule? We know that it's a positive number times a negative number. So we would multiply like normal. So we're going to multiply 6 times 2, which equals 12. And then we use the rule that a positive times a negative is always going to be a negative number. So I don't know why that just lagged. So we make 12 a negative to get negative 12. Now try 10 and 11 and check it with the Edpuzzle video. So you should have, for number 10, gotten negative 96. I have the work over here. 12 times 8 is 96, and a negative times a positive is a negative. And then number 11, leaking would be losing 7 gallons. So negative 7 times 9 hours. Negative 7 times 9 hours would be negative 63. Now, next example. Rosa is at the top of a climbing wall. She descends, so I know that's down. She descends 48 feet of the wall in 6 equal stages. What integer represents the change in Rosa's position at each stage? So I know this question is dividing, not just because it says dividing at the top of the page, but also because if 48 was her total, and she descended in 6 equal stages. So she went down, we had to cut 48 into 6 pieces. So they made like a diagram to show she started at 0 and she went to 48. And if we cut it into 6 stages, then we knew that we actually did 48 divided by 6, which is going to be 8. So each descent would be going down, so that would actually be negative 48 divided by 6 to get a negative 8. So we went down negative 8 every time, because 0 plus negative 8 is negative 8. Negative 8 plus another negative 8 is negative 16. Negative 16 plus, and so on and so on. So if we continue adding negative 8, we're going to end up at 48, negative 48. Or we could do the number way. How many feet total divided by how many stages equals the number in each stage. So we started, we know she went negative 48 total divided by 6 stages, and 48 divided by 6, we just divide like normal. 48 divided by 6 is going to be 8. And a negative divided by a positive has the same rules as multiplying. A negative divided by a positive is a negative 8. So now we're going to connect it. We're going to look a little bit deeper into this problem. We could rewrite her division. We could rewrite her division as multiplication, going back to those number families. Negative 48 divided by 6 is the same thing as 6 times what number is negative 48. And then think about what we know about our rules. We know that a positive times a what, so a positive times a what number is going to be a negative number. Well, a positive, we know this has to be a negative, so our answer has to be a negative number. Sorry that is lagging again. I don't know why it connects my number. It must be negative or connects my words. And we already said why, because a positive times a negative is going to be a negative answer. So 6 times what number is negative 48? Well, 6 times 8 is 48. So we knew it had to be negative, so that will be 6 times negative 8 is negative 48. So her change in position is negative 8 feet each time. Now try question 15 and then check it with the video. So check your work with mine. We know it was 15 and 3, so we would always have to say, well, 3 times what is going to be 15? This one, it was a positive 3 and a negative 15, so that'd be a negative answer. This time it was a negative 3 and a negative 15, and a negative times a positive has to be a negative, so that's why that's a positive answer. And the next one is negative 3 times what is a positive 15? Well, a negative times a negative has to make a positive. Now try number 16 and then check it with the video. And remember, quotient means division. That's the key word that means divide. So for 16, you should have gotten negative, positive, negative. You could have gone back to the rules from the beginning of the unit to look at those, because the division rules are the same as the multiplication rules. And now last questions. Try number 17 and 18 and then check it with the video. So for 17, you should have gotten negative 6, and for 18, you should have gotten negative 20. Here it's because 54 and 17. 54 divided by 9 is 6, and a positive divided by a negative is a negative. And in number 18, 240 divided by 12, because it's, well, negative 240 because we added descent. So I worked out 240 divided by 12 to get 20. So negative 240 divided by positive 12 will be a negative 20. And now you're ready to practice either on the interactive practice on iReady, or you can look at page 30 and 31 in your workbook.